Okay, guys, so sorry about the Zoom today. It took us forever to get started with all the problems this morning with the different meeting code and passwords. So I'm going to read to you the story of this week. Okay, I have 15 minutes, it shows on my YouTube. So we're going to go to page 117. And these are the words that are highlighted are the ones that are going to be our vocabulary words for this week. I will send you the list with the definition so that you will have those. Read along with me. The Rosetta Stone. In 1799, a French army officer found a stone lab near the city of Rosetta in Egypt. On the stone was the same announcement in 3 different languages. At the top was hieroglyphics, a writing that uses pictures or symbols to stand for ideas and sounds. This writing was used in ancient Egypt. In the middle was an Egyptian language called Demotic. At the bottom was the Greek language. For more than 3,000 years, the ancient Egyptians used hieroglyphics on their temple walls and monuments. But over time, the language was forgotten. For hundreds of years, scholars were unable to figure out how to read hieroglyphics. Jean-Francois Champollion was a French scholar who wanted to be the first to read hieroglyphics. He studied the language his whole life. He was a true seeker of knowledge. He used the Greek part of the Rosetta Stone to translate the Egyptian part. The Rosetta Stone gave him a link between the known and the unknown. Champollion's work was a triumph. It allowed other scholars and archaeologists to uncover the history of ancient Egypt. Excuse me. Marta? Marta? Marta?
Yeah.
There's a man here for the dogs. Pedals. See. See. Okay. So, as you turn to page 118 and 119, it's the genre. We're going to be talking about Pierre in the story. This genre is explaining, it's a biography. It's a story about the life of a real person that is written by another person. Biographies usually tell important events in the person's life in the order in which they happen. Illustrations, captions, and other graphic sources are often included to provide information and clarify the meaning of the text. So when you predict, we're going to be finding out who this seeker of knowledge is and what is it that he wanted to do. Turn to page 120. In 1790, a French boy named Jean-Francois Champollion was born. Look at the pictures and how they're showing little hieroglyphic pictures of how being born. When he was 7, his older brother told him about General Napoleon, the great leader of France, who was in Egypt uncovering the past. Someday I'll go to Egypt too, Jean-Francois told his brother as he sat spellbound, imagining himself with Napoleon making his own discoveries. Look again at that hieroglyphic for discoveries. When Jean-Francois was 11, he went to school in the city of Grenoble. There, his brother took him to meet a famous scientist who had been in Egypt with Napoleon. The scientist's house was filled with Egyptian treasures. Each one captured the boy's imagination. Page 121. Can anyone read their writing? Asked Jean-Francois. No, no one, the scientist replied. Then I will one day, said Francois. And he left the house full of enthusiasm, sure that he would be the first to discover the key to Egyptian hieroglyphics. Back home, his brother helped him get down all the books they had on Egypt. On moonlit nights, Jean-Francois stayed up reading long after he should have been asleep. His brother nicknamed him the Egyptian and bought him notebooks. Jean-Francois filled them with hieroglyphs. There were prowling lions, there's a hieroglyph, angry monkeys, trumpeting elephants, and sharp-eyed ibis birds with their long curved bills. He could not read the Egyptian words, but he dreamed that one day he would as he sailed up the Nile. When Jean-Francois finished school at 16, his brother took him to Paris to meet, look at how they're meeting, the scholars, people who are very intelligent and educated, who were studying a black stone from Rosetta, Egypt. The stone was covered with Egyptian and Greek words and told of a king of Egypt named Ptolemy. The P is not heard. It's just Ptolemy. By reading the Greek, the scholars hoped to decipher the Egyptian, but the work was difficult, certainly too difficult for a boy, and the scholars turned Jean-Francois away. Goodbye. They did not see the fire burning bright in his eyes. They did not recognize the genius who had already learned all the known ancient languages. They did not know that he was a seeker of knowledge, one who would not rest until he had found the answer. Jean-Francois gathered his notebooks and returned to Grenoble. There he taught school. His students often came to hear him talk about Egypt, her pharaohs and gods, and the mysterious writing. Once, even Napoleon came to Grenoble and sat up all night, listening spellbound as Jean-Francois told the great man of his dreams. Napoleon promised to send Jean-Francois to Egypt when he conquered the world. Napoleon dreamed of glory. Jean-Francois dreamed of discovery. So Napoleon is only interested in conquering the world and having glory, whereas Jean-Francois is just dreaming of discovery. Page 124. But a few minutes later, Napoleon was defeated at the Battle of Waterloo. France was now defenseless. Her enemies poured in. They surrounded Grenoble and in the early morning bombarded the city. Jean-Francois ran to save his notebooks from the flames. The people were angry with Napoleon and anyone who knew him. They pointed fingers at Jean-Francois and called him a traitor. He fled into the woods, leaving his notebooks behind. There he lived like a hunted dog. It was weeks before it was safe to come out, and months before he saw his notebooks again. During these troubled times, scholars everywhere were racing to solve the mystery of Egyptian writing. Unbelievable things were said. Ridiculous books were written. No one had the answer. Then an Englishman discovered that a few of the hieroglyphs on the Rosetta Stone were letters, and he deciphered King Ptolemy's name. Everyone said that the Englishman would be the first to unlock the door to Egypt's past. Everyone except Jean-Francois. When Jean-Francois was 30, he gathered up his notebooks and left Grenoble. He made his way back to Paris to his brother. In Paris, Jean-Francois studied the Rosetta Stone and other inscriptions. He compared the Greek letters with the Egyptian hieroglyphs and herded together his own alphabet of eagles and lions and dark-eyed chicks. But this wonderful list of letters was no help in reading the language. There were too many pictures he did not understand. What to make of a fish with legs? A jackal with wings? Or an ibis god with A long, curved bill? There had to be a link between the pictures and the Egyptian letters. But what was it? Jean-Francois slept little. He ate almost nothing. Then, on a September morning in 1822, Jean-Francois found a small package on his doorstep from a friend in Egypt. In it were the names of pharaohs copied from a temple wall. Each name was like a jigsaw puzzle, a puzzle of letters and pictures. Jean-Francois studied the names and saw the link. The pictures were sounds too, not single letters, but syllables, even whole words. One of the names drew him. It began with the hieroglyph of an old silent friend perched on a sacred staff. This was a picture of the god of writing, Thoth, followed by the letters M and S. Thoths. Jean-Francois suddenly exclaimed, and the rushing sound of the pharaoh's name, as if carried on wings across the centuries, filled the room. Page 128. Jean-Francois raced down the street to his brother's office. He burst through the door, exclaiming, "I have the key!" Then he collapsed. Cute hieroglyph picture. He had not eaten, he had not slept for 5 days. He lay there near death. On the 5th day he awoke. "Pen and paper," he whispered, and he wrote of his discovery to the world. People all over France. His triumph as Jean-Francois became the first to translate the ancient writing and open the door to Egypt's past. A few years later, the people of France sent Jean-Francois to Egypt on an expedition to uncover more secrets. He knew Egypt so well in his mind that he felt he was going home. As Jean-Francois had imagined 1,000 times in his dream, he sailed up the Nile. Once ashore, he entered the ruins of a temple. A magnificent flock of ibis suddenly rose up from the reeds and took flight. Below the ibis saw the seeker of knowledge touch the stone walls. His fingers dipped into the carved pictures. He pressed his ear to the stone and listened to the ancient voices. Now, I wanted to ask you some questions throughout this story, but I am going to have to probably post those. I won't post any questions for today, so look for those possibly tomorrow. I did not also give you the wordly wise words because I did not want to overload you today on Monday. So I will introduce the wordly wise words tomorrow through a PowerPoint like what we're used to. Just remember the option when I give you a PDF. You can write on that PDF through Seesaw using that T label button, okay? So if you have questions, I will try to answer those. Again, I'm sorry about today we weren't able to meet. I'm going to try again for tomorrow at 10. So look for that meeting code. Hopefully it does not change once I get to tomorrow morning. I did save it yesterday under to the 21st at 10 o'clock, but it did not take today. So I apologize. We'll try again tomorrow. See you soon. I hope you have a great day. Thanks.